Well, hey everybody, I'm out here at the workbench now live, and I thought it was going to be a nice quiet place, but they're doing some work upstairs and drilling and stuff, so hopefully the sound comes through. I've got a couple of different little mics clipped on here around the bench, so let me know if you can hear me or not hear me, because what I'm going to be doing here today is putting the final touches on one of my hobo fiddles. I've got it here. Hello Matthew, can you hear me all right? Is the voice, audio coming through? Here is the box that I'm using for this hobo fiddle. It shows a railroad track gang, a crew on there. This is a sketch that Farley did from an old black and white photo, and then I wood burned it on, added the text there, Legend of the Hobo Fiddle, and kind of some, oh, I got static going on, huh? Well, I don't know what to do about the static. A little crackly. Here, let me try moving these wires. Oh. There's a crackle for you. Alright, get this back on. Sorry, this is, you know how it is, running. I don't know where I had this one clipped. Alright, how about that? Alright. Constant static, huh? Well, I might have to just unplug these lab mics and... Alright, we're just going to go from the phone's mic and hopefully all this background noise doesn't drown me out. Anyway, this is the box. I've already got it notched for how I do the hobo fiddles. Here's the neck. Start off with, I think, a 25-inch piece of wood. Recess the headstock down, put one of our little retainer nuts on there. And then recess back here. This one does not have a fretboard glued on. This is, I started with an inch thick piece of wood instead of 3/4 inch, and then just fretted it directly. And then of course wood burned in there. Everything's backwards because I'm using the front facing camera, so sorry about that. I got all my wood burning on there, the hobo fiddle, the fret markers, all of that. So inside the box, I don't do a lot of bracing in these because one of the reasons I use the nylon strings is so it doesn't put that much tension on the box overall. And these are old, this one's a Corinna Larks. I like using these Corinna Larks. So anyway, I've got it braced in there such that the neck goes into the notch. And I know it looks like I'm holding this left-handed. I'm not, folks. I'm still right-handed. So it goes in there, and then you attach it in. There isn't all that much left to do on this one, so I hope to be able to finish this, get her strung up, and give it that first magical strum while we're broadcasting here. I do still have to figure out where the heck to put my sound hole, because my design didn't really take sound hole into account, so got to get that figured out. You ever do that? You got your perfect design going and you're like, well crap, where's the sound hole gonna go? Anyway, before I do that though, I want to get the tailpiece treated. We started cutting these special tailpieces out of, instead of stainless steel, this is cut out of mild steel, regular old sheet steel, 0.024 inches thick. And they're a little shorter because what I'll actually end up doing is bending it about right here. So this part goes over the back, it bends, and the strings tie on. Now, the reason for using the mild steel is, well, it's a little softer than stainless, a little easier to cut, a little easier to clean up. But I found some magic stuff, the magic blue stuff, from a company that you can use to treat steel to get different kinds of finishes. So I can get dark gray. This is antique bronze I'm going to be doing on this one. They've got, you know, bright coppery red. They've got dark brown rust. Anyway, it's a brush-on compound, acid, and I don't know what all's in here. Probably some copper sulfate or something. So I'm just going to dip my brush directly down in this stuff and brush it onto this. Now this started off shiny, well, somewhat shiny, kind of like a matte colored steel, you know, regular old steel gray. But as I brush this stuff on and let it sit, it's going to start turning a nice antique bronze color. And of course that's perfect for a hobo fiddle, because I don't want something shiny and new looking. You know, you can see it's starting to turn already. I don't want something shiny and fancy looking. I want something that looks like it was picked up alongside the old railroad tracks, you know, like an actual hobo would have used. So I'm going to keep putting this. Now this is an acid-based compound, so I don't want to go touching it or sticking it in my eye or licking it or anything. But that's pretty good advice for any sort of chemical that you're using at the workbench. Now Lenny Henderson is saying gun bluing works too. I think this is a similar sort of chemical science to gun bluing, Lenny. This same company that I got these from, and if you're wondering, it is Surefin, that's backwards. Surefin Chemical Company. I got a few different ones, and I thought for this one that this antique bronze was a good fit. But yeah, gun bluing, and then there's also a browning. I believe there's a browning compound that was used on older gun barrels. So there's a lot of different things. Once you start digging into the chemistry of metal coloring, there's a lot of good stuff out there to give a try. All right, well, I'm just going to get this kind of soaking in a good bath of this stuff here. And let that get good and dark. Get my cap back on so I don't spill this goo all over the place. As you can see, I don't know if you can see in the background there, I got a few different ones. I haven't even tried them all out yet. Wipe up that presumably acid-based compound there. Yeah, that's looking good. That's going to be a perfect look for this hobo fiddle. So, what I do, as you can see, I've glued in my bracing at the heel and the neck attachment. So I'm going to go ahead now and drill and mount this neck to this box. I've got my notch cut in my box side already for it to go through. And with this, really, I just need to make sure I've got the neck at the right spot. I'm going to draw a line back here in case it shifts. And then try to make sure that the neck is parallel to the sides of the long sides of the box, because I don't want it to be, you don't want the neck coming out at an angle, you know. But with a lot of this stuff, I just eyeball it. You know, you can get all carried away with measuring, and on some things, I'm very careful about measuring, but on other things, I just eyeball it. Okay, so now ideally I'd have a way to keep this exactly in that position while I do this other stuff. Let's see if I can. Uh-oh. My bench frequently gets raided for clamps. Some of these necks that we're doing, I could show you. Let me go get one and show you. Some of these premium necks that we're gluing up, RJ really makes sure those fretboards are clamped on there. Take a look at that. He's got 3 or 4 going over there, and boy, that takes a lot of clamps at a time. It's actually heavy just from the clamps. So the offshoot of that is that, oh man, there's pretty much no clamp. Well, I'm going to steal a couple of those because that glue's set up. I'll be right back. I need a couple of clamps for this. course, those premium necks there with the fretboard already glued on and ready to go. Hey William, thank you, happy Labor Day to you. Those are our new premium necks, and that is what goes into the new electric, the Chicago Electric cigar box guitar kit that we're doing. So it's a lot of work goes into those. Those are all fretted by hand, and as you can see, glued up by hand. There's no cutting corners on those, or on anything we do, really, I hope. Alright, so I'm going to kind of clamp that in place there, and then proceed to drill 2 holes down into these braces through the neck so that I can put screws down there and hold that in place. And I generally just use good old fine thread drywall screws for this. I got a big bin of random drywall screws here that I always pull from. Alright, got a couple of fine thread ones, and then I need a drill bit that's good for that thread size. I was explaining to somebody the other day, and most of you probably already know this, but when you're drilling pilot holes, you want a drill bit that's just a bit smaller than the threads of your screw. Because if it's the same size as the threads of your screw, those threads won't have much wood or any wood to grip. So you want it just a bit smaller so those threads can grab onto the wood and do their job. And of course, in terms of safety, the wearing of safety stuff, always wear all recommended safety items and gear, even if I don't. I've been accused of being a bad example to the kids by not always wearing all safety gear. And I tell you, there's some people that only be happy if you're in a full Kevlar suit, I think. I wear it when it matters, you know, when I'm using the really powerful stuff that can really mess you up. So I drilled my hole. I should show you here what I did after drilling it. This is a hand manual countersinking tool. So you drill your hole and then you put that in and kind of ream out a countersinking area so the head of a flat screw can seat down in there flush. I use this a lot. There are, of course, ones you can buy that chuck into your drill, but I find it's easy to overdo it when you've got a countersinker in your drill. So I like doing them by hand, especially in a case like this where, you know, this wood isn't all that thick inside the box here, and if you just crank down too far, you could split it, or bad stuff could happen. So there are certain things I always like to do by hand and not trust the sometimes overly powerful power tools. There's my second. Ream out my hole. And like I was saying, the reason I'm able to get away without doing as much in terms of bracing is because I use nylon strings on these. Alright, my box. It's always the test. Does your box shut after you get that neck mounted in there? Matthew asking, where did I get that tool? I think it was just at Lowe's. I think they got them at Lowe's if you look in the drill bit area. Or maybe Home Depot, one of the two. I don't know what the hell's going on upstairs. Alright, so my neck's mounted in there. Now I really got to get serious. I think I'm going to pop my sound hole through right over here. I got that bracing block in there to watch out for. So I'm probably going to lose a little bit of my lettering on the word the, because when I only do one sound hole, I like it to be right up in this corner above the neck, or you know, on the top side of the neck. And I'd rather give up a little bit of the word the, because you can kind of assume that, as opposed to giving up some of the some of the word fiddle there. So, for that sound hole, what I like to do, or what I use, is this old tool here that I got from my grandpa. It's an old hole saw drill piece. It has interchangeable little round saw things that you put in there, and it's got teeth on there. So rather than a Forstner or a spade bit, which can sometimes tear, I prefer to use this. Now the downside of this is that it's so old and these teeth aren't all that sharp anymore. But I've got a little drill press right here that you can kind of half see. I'm just going to chuck this in. It has the size of saw bit in there that I generally use. So I'm just going to chuck that in, and always check, double check, be extra mindful when drilling your sound hole of what is in there that could be hit. Because when you got a brace taking up this much, you know, you gotta try to get around it. You don't want to hit the neck. So I'm just kind of guesstimating here. I'm going to lose a good bit of the word "the," but that's all right. And again, I should be wearing safety stuff right now as we speak. All right. So there's my sound hole, maybe a little bigger than it absolutely had to be. Lost most of the word "the," but that's all right. Cleared the neck. I mean, you can see the neck in there. And cleared the brace. I will use the, I'll use my, wood burning iron, my wood burner, to darken up those surfaces in there that you can see, just so they blend in a little bit better. All right. I'm wishing in hindsight that I'd have made that sound hole a little smaller. But as they say, it's easy to drill a hole. It's awfully hard to undrill it. But it'll work, you know? That's the beauty of these kinds of instruments. Pretty much anything can be made to work. Yeah, but all right, so what now? I'm going to check on my tailpiece. It's looking good. And if you just tuned in, oh, it actually was getting warm. If you just tuned in, we've made some special tailpieces out of mild steel for these. And it looks like it's rubbing off a little more than I expected. Let's see. I had buffed it with the fine buff wheel, and I wonder if it would have done better with a coarser buffing. Let's see. I've got a little wire brush. Ah, there it is. Yeah, I'm going to have to give this one another coat. I think I'll actually stuff it with this sandpaper. And then recoat it. Because when the chemical has the grooves and stuff to get down into, it sticks a little bit. It gives it a little tooth, as my friend Dale would say. All right, so basically starting over on this. But you'll have that. Yeah, I think this time for the win. So as I was saying, I don't think I've said on this broadcast, but on the last broadcast on the Cigar Box Nation page there, my first run of these masterclass, what I call the masterclass hobo fiddles, that have the hand wood burn box and the neck of recovered railroad wood from the old water tower. And oh, the other thing I got to do is get that number nail set up here into the headstock. It just so happens that I've got a few number nails I bought off eBay. So for this one, how about a nice old 31? You able to see that? I know it's backwards, but 31, you know, these number nails were pounded into railroad ties. When a new tie was put in back in the day, they'd pound one of these nails in that had the date year forged into the head, so they'd know what year that tie was put in. And these ones from the Depression years, of course the Great Depression started in 1929, and this is a 31, so it was really getting going by that point. I like using these. Of course, I've got bags, a bunch of them I found myself, a bunch I bought off eBay, teens and 20s, all sorts of good stuff. All the way up through like the 50s, late 50s I think they used them. So I've actually got to take this over and use the angle grinder to cut that steel shank and then drill a hole to set that into the headstock. But before that, I've got my handy dandy wood burner. Keep hearing sounds, weird sounds. Get that ready, and it's got a bunch of different bits. I've got a certain bit that I like for what I'm about to do to this sound hole here. Lenny asks if I sell the dated nails. I don't. I got the bulk. I found about 100 of them on local defunct railroads. The rest I got off eBay in a big lot, but you can find smaller lots of them on eBay. There's a bunch of them. All sorts of stuff going on upstairs. I don't know. All right, here's the one I got. This is a pretty fancy wood burning station that was recommended to me by Shane Spiel, and I got it. And now I got a bunch of different tips. That go on there for doing different things. What are they called? Number nails is the most common term. Railroad number nails. Matthew Simpson asking about the dual layer pots. I do still have those, Matthew. I've got about 2,000 of the darn things, because twice they sent me the wrong thing. They thought I was ordering those, but I wanted the regular single layer ones. And just here's a little hint, you know, nothing heavy, but you might see those featured on an upcoming Wacky Wednesday, because I want to get rid of them. We got a lot of them, and I want to get rid of them, so there could be an extra Wacky Wednesday very soon involving those dual layer volume pots. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the top secret method I use for my Hobo Fiddle sound holes. So I got get my wood burner turned on, and you'll see this is a pretty high power wood burner. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but yeah, you can see it there. She starts glowing pretty quick. And then I basically just smoke myself out, but I pretty much just burn the inside rim of that sound hole. Anytime I fire up this wood burner with all the different tips and the variable power and all that kind of stuff, I think of my grandpa, who wood burned for a lot of years, and he had just a regular hobby store wood burner, one tip, one chisel type tip, and he wood burned all sorts of different stuff with just that one tip. And here I am being all choosy about So after I finish burning the inside of the rim, then I start going around the outside, kind of laying this on at an angle. The goal being to make it look like a hole that was burned in rather than cut. Now, in so doing, I've pretty much completely obliterated the word "the," but that's all right. You can always, the legend of the hobo fiddle, it'll survive without it. So there's my sound hole, touched up, still smoking, folks. Touched up, and now inside there you can see that neck. I'm going to use the blunt edge of this wood burner to darken that up, just so it doesn't stand out too much. Of course, I treated that neck with tung oil, so that's making some pretty nasty smoke. You know, when you buy tung oil at Lowe's, like Formsby's brand is what we get, there isn't that much actual, I don't know how much, but it's not just pure tung oil. They got I don't know if it's polyurethane or some sort of actual finish in there, so breathing in the fumes from that, not highly recommended. Make sure your thing stays plugged in. Looks like something went wrong. Oh, that's it. The tip has to stay fully plugged into the wand. Alright. I know you can't really see what I'm doing, but I'm burning this side of the neck there so that when the lid is shut, it looks dark, it looks burned, it looks pretty cool, I think. I don't like to have anything inside the box really stand out too much when the lid's shut. You know, I'd be able to see it through the sound hole. Now I could, of course, put some screen or something into that sound hole, which can be a good way to kind of mask stuff. But I haven't put screen into any of the other sound holes on these. And I'm trying to kind of keep a theme going, or a design, so. Of course, you know, woodworking or wood burning, especially if you're doing more intricate designs, it can take a little time, and certainly not necessarily the most interesting thing to watch somebody do. So I'm trying to just kind of do a quick topical sort of treatment on this. Again, just trying to make that wood of the neck look burned. Yeah, there we go. Look like whatever burned that sound hole into the top also burned inside. And a little bit of my bracing block is visible through the sound hole, so I'm going to burn that a little bit. Just, you know, it's all part of creating an illusion. As you know, with cigar box guitars, the only person who can decide how far you want to take something is you, because there is no one right way, and there really aren't any rules beyond the ones you set for yourself. I've set a couple of rules for myself. One of them is, no matter what you try, experiments you do, crazy wacky stuff, an instrument should not implode or fold up under the tension of its own strings. So that's one rule that I've set for myself. Another rule is nothing should interfere with the vibration of the strings. You know, no decoration or no part of the construction should interfere with the ability of the strings to vibrate and ring out. Now Edward's asking about how to install a neck and bridge to attain true intonation. Well, I got to admit, I don't know a lot about true intonation. I'm the kind of guy. Relative intonation is kind of what I shoot for. In general, with a fretted neck, you want the strings to be at a good height above the frets, so you don't have to push them down too far, but yet far enough away that they don't buzz when you play. So there's no single answer. There's probably a whole book that could be written on the topic. All right, so I'm burning. Can you see that brace in there? Darkening that down. Looks like I got a little ways to go just to finish the. Oh, flinging a red hot thing around, that'll get your attention real quick. Again, with safety, do as I say, not as I do. Wear all necessary safety equipment, like, you know, respirators and gloves and eye protection and all that good stuff, the way the Lord intended. As I was saying earlier, watching a guy wood burn is not the most exciting thing, and I know that. You all are definitely aware of that because you're doing it right now. But with these hobo fiddles, and I don't, well, my goal was to finish this one during this broadcast, but on the other hand, this is not the sort of thing with these Master Series Hobo Fiddles, not the sort of thing I ever want to rush in any way, shape, or form, because I don't get a lot of time to get out here to the bench and work on these. And I kind of pour my heart and soul into these, came up with this design, you know, creating the story behind it. So I don't, I told myself with these, you know, you gotta charge. If people want to buy them, they gotta, you know, be willing to pay what I feel they're worth. And if nobody wants to pay that, well, that's fine. They don't have to. I'll keep them all myself. But it's hard for me to ever put a higher price on anything, because part of me is saying, well, it's just a stick through a cigar box. You know, how much could you really charge for it? But on the other hand, the story, the craftsmanship, all of that, you know. All right, well, I think I got this bracing block just about burned in. And I thought, somebody said, I think Matthew Simpson said earlier, a blowtorch can speed up some of this wood charring. I'd be hesitant to stick a blowtorch in here because, boy, this thin cedar that this old antique box is made out of, it could, it wouldn't take much to blast right through that and out the other side. So I err on the side of caution. And then another thing that I like to do, I kind of bent the, when I was flinging this thing around, I kind of bent it. So I'm going to turn the power off, grab my little pliers here, straighten that back out. Because what I want to do inside this box, in through the sound hole, what I like to do is write, with the wood burning pen, write the word hobo. Visible, centered right under the, make a mark there. So I just like to write the word hobo and then put a, put some kind of like sunburst lines coming out from it. Because for me, it's like what, you know, imagination-wise, what burned through the soundboard to make the hole, then went in and burned in the word hobo inside. Because these are, of course, hobo fiddles. And I know you can't see what the heck I'm doing here. Try to The lighting isn't great from this angle, and if it was easy, anybody could do it. Oh wait, anybody can do it. So I see you're mentioning those little butane torches. That's a good idea. I've got a cigar torch at home. That would make this, some aspects of this, quicker. And actually, I've got a shading tip in the thing there. That makes this shading in areas a lot easier too. I've never like read a book or anything on wood burning. Probably should. You know, it's a funny thing. I've found that, you know, I tend to be more of a launch into it and figure it out as I go kind of person, and in some cases do things for years and then finally like read a book on the subject and like, oh man, there are a lot better ways to be doing this. Save a lot of time. That can be one good thing about the like woodworking magazines and woodworking books. You know, people have been working with wood for a long time, and they figured out a lot of jigs and fixtures and tricks and tips that can really make things better, or quicker, more effective, more efficient. See Chris McKinney out there. Good to see you, buddy. Chris Binge tuning in. Well, thank you for taking time out of your Labor Day weekend festivities here to watch me stand at a bench and rub a hot thing across wood. There, that'll do. I know you won't be able to see, but no, got the word hobo in there with some sort of sunburst lines around it. Maybe if I do it this way. So nothing too fancy, and I know it's backwards because I'm using the front camera on the phone, but that's in there, so if you can just see it through the sound hole. It's a little something I like to do. All right, so the next thing I like to do, I've got my hot glue gun heated up. I use hot glue gun a lot for this sort of assembly because it's quick, fast, and strong. I like to glue square dowel braces into each of the corners inside the box so that I have something that screws can go through the top and dig into to hold that box shut. I don't glue these shut anymore. The first couple I did, and then I decided being able to get back in there was a pretty attractive option. So what next? I guess next I can install the disc piezo. I just put a basic disc piezo in here, hot glued in, straight to jack, but if you can see on there, I put a capacitor from the hot to ground on that jack. That is a 0.01 microfarad capacitor, 0.01 UF. We sell them at cbgitty.com. What that does is it tones down the scratchiness of the disc piezo. It cuts out some of the high trebles and gives it a more mellow tone. Now it's still a very active, responsive pickup. Sometimes they're a little too active and responsive. I kind of wish on the Hobo Fiddle I built for myself, #1, that I have used on stage now a couple of times, I've wished a couple of times that it had a preamp in it, just to help tone down and smooth out the disc piezo. But having fancy electronics in an instrument like this doesn't, for me, fit aesthetically. So I have stuck with just a basic disc piezo. Now I always like to glue the disc piezo near, just a little bit off of where the bass string side of the bridge will sit. So just up on this side of the neck, because of course when it's in playing position, the low G string, the bass G string, will be on top. So the bridge will be about here, and so I'm going to glue that piezo pickup right about there, and then the jack I will bring out right down here, out the back. And I use a 3/8 inch drill bit for the jack. But I always like to pre-drill, especially on these thin wood boxes. I like to drill a smaller pilot hole and then finish it off. There's a little less chance of it tearing. You can also get 3/8 inch Forstner bits, which can be pretty handy. So, alright, bottom side, got to clear the brace in there. So there's my pilot. And now 3/8. And I always ream the 3/8 out a little bit because the shaft on these new trick jacks is just about exactly 3/8, so give it a little bit of breathing room. And get that mounted in. Handy dandy crescent wrench. Tighten that down snug. Of course, with these softwood boxes, you can see it start to push that washer into the wood. And then I like to squeeze just a dab of hot glue in here on the back side of this jack to try to help keep it from coming loose and spinning on down the road. Just a little hot glue in there just to help keep it in place. All right. So now, see, I always don't be ashamed of having to double check and realign, because if you glue, you know, once you drill or once you get something mounted, so just actually, why don't I just measure where my bridge is going to be? These are 17-inch scale with a 0 fret. So 17 is right here. That's where the bridge is going to go. And I like to use these mini or small banjo style bridges on these. So I can see right where this base side foot is going to be, and determine that my piezo should be right around there. Of course, on the other side. All right, no problem. Bring the hot glue gun over. So I took, let me just make a little mark there. So I took the cable, I mounted the jack there through the wall, bringing the cable under the neck, and then over to where it's going to glue on to the box lid. And the way I like to do this, there are differing opinions on how you handle and treat this disc piezo. Some people like to embed them or like fold them in between leather, or embed. We actually sell some embedded in a wooden disc or a bottle cap. For these hobo fiddles, I just glue them directly on, but I start off, I try to make a nice puddle of hot glue, about the size of a quarter, because these are 20mm disc piezos. So I started off there, and then I push it down, but just lightly, because what I want to do is have a layer, a 1/16 of an inch thick, say, a layer of hot glue between the piezo and the wood. So I don't push it down tight, and then I go back over it with another glob to encase, completely cover and encase that disc piezo, encase, E-N-C-A-S-E, in the hot glue again with a layer of it between the piezo and the box lid. And then of course you got to kind of hold it there until the hot glue sets up, which can take a little while. And then the reason that I like to leave that space of hot glue in between the piezo and the box lid is sort of as a rubbery cushion to help cut down on some of the harsher scratching noises, you know, because a piezo is basically a contact microphone. It'll pick up any vibration that occurs on this box lid. So if you think of the box lid kind of like the head of a drum, any vibration that causes that thing to vibrate, this disc piezo is going to try to pick up. So of course I want it to pick up the vibration of the strings. I don't necessarily want it to pick up every time my arm happens to move a little bit or the pick taps it. So it can be a little tricky to get disc piezos to sound good. And some people are not very fond of disc piezos, but I have found that with proper installation they can sound pretty good. Of course, adding that preamp can really make them sound good. Now I've got to run over to the metalworking table for a moment and cut the shank on this number nail. I'm going to leave about 3/16 of an inch so that I can drill a hole in my headstock and then glue it in. So if you'll bear with me for just a moment, I'm going to run over and do that. I don't have it set up to do here on my bench. Watch this hot glue setup. Very exciting stuff. And I'll be right back. It goes without saying, and I'm sure all of you know this already, that I was wearing all recommended and necessary safety equipment while cutting this with an angle grinder. So don't worry about that. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm just going to use my handy dandy calipers to measure the shank so I know what size hole to drill. I'm guessing 3/16. 0.266. So that's a little over a quarter. So I'll probably do a 5/16 inch hole. That's what I meant. 5/16, not 3. And I've got my handy dandy 5/16 inch drill bit here. Well, y'all did a good job because that hot glue is nicely set up now. So the end result, you can see there about a quarter sized glob of hot glue with that rod or the disc piezo encased in it. So there's no bare parts of that disc piezo exposed to the air. People have a lot of different theories. Hey, I see David Comtois out there. Good to see you, buddy. People have a lot of different theories about disc piezo. Some people swear that different sized, like bigger disc piezos have better bass response. We've tested and tried. Never been able to hear a difference. But on the other hand, I carry all the different sizes on CB Gitty so as to allow the people who believe that to get what they want, you know? I found that you can waste a lot of time arguing with people, and it's easier to just let them do what they want, do what makes them happy, and everybody's fine. All right, so at this point, with the piezo glued on. Hey, Rusty Taylor out there, good to see you, buddy. With the piezo glued in and the jack mounted, before I go doing any sealing of the box or anything, I always like to test that piezo. Matthew asked, do I ever cap my piezos? Capacitor? I showed you the capacitor on there. If you mean put something over them, no. I don't usually. We sell the Capitone pickups, which are on sale right now, actually. The Capitone pickup harnesses are part of the big Labor Day sale we got going on cbgitty.com. Get over there and check it out if you haven't already. So we encase them for some of the ones we sell. I'm a fan of this hot glue method, and that's what I usually tend to use. But everyone is free to do what they like. Alright, so I'm going to drill my mounting hole for this number nail. Figure out where to drill it here, centered. My handy dandy scratch awl here. For starting that hole in a likely place. Now I don't like to drill all the way through for these, but sometimes I accidentally do. Never been a big fan of setting depth stops and all that kind of stuff. Although, of course, it can be a good way to make sure you don't drill too far. I got a little nub on here I got to file off. Memorial bench vise there. Grandpa, this was my grandpa's bench. That was his vise. Okay. So that hole seems good. So now I'm going to hot glue this baby in. Why not? A little dabby do. And then press it into place. Ideally with a little bit of the glue kind of spooging out. There. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, Rusty, that's a good line. No rules except the laws of physics. They'll get you every time. No matter how much you want to call them fake news, but the laws of physics still kick in. Okay, so got my pickup in. I accidentally scratched the soundboard a little bit with the drill bit when I was doing the sound hole. So I've got to touch that up. I'll probably give the whole thing another treatment of tongue oil before I string it. Just to, I like tongue oil, the Formsby's brand of tongue oil, because it isn't just tongue oil, it has the alphytic resins and whatever the heck in there that penetrates, seals, and then it dries hard. So with thin softwood panels, treating it with that Formsby's tongue oil can actually strengthen the wood, and because it gets in there and then it dries hard. Ken Tyler asking about the glue gun. Yeah, this is a Surebonder Pro, so it's a little beefier than. I think I got that from Grizzly. That might have been from Grizzly, and it's not cheap to get a good one. It's got different tips and stuff. I never really mess around with those, but yeah, it's a handy tool because with cigar box guitar building, like we use it, gluing in, bracing, all sorts of stuff. We use the hot glue guns for, and it's never let go on us. I'm just getting a couple of bracing dowels here. Don't be alarmed. I like to get these square 1/2-inch dowels for using as bracing and other things. So I'm going to cut 4 of these to length, glue 1 into each corner. Oh, see, I should have done this before I mounted my jack, because I don't have a 1/2-inch in there. Oh boy, that's all right. I can work around that. It'll just be a little bit shorter piece. You know, I'm sure some of you folks are got all this down to enough of a science where you just crank them out, never make mistakes anymore. But me, I'm a perpetual newbie, still making some of the same damn mistakes that I made on my first one. I'd like to think a little bit fewer. So Brad asks, what are we working on? Well, this is a hobo fiddle, Brad. This will be number 7 in my Master Series Hobo Fiddles. Got the wood burned artwork on there, a Farley sketch from an old photo. So yeah, this is Hobo Fiddle number 7 on the bench. And I think I need to, nah, it'll go. Okay, anyway, yes, my bracing pieces, I got that jack in the way of this corner one, so I'm going to have to fudge that one a little bit. All right. So I'm putting these braces in both to strengthen the corners and to give me something to screw down into from the top here, because I like to put a screw in each corner to hold that top shut instead of gluing the box. So I've got my handy dandy flush cut saw here, and actually I can use this is a not yet released kit tool. It's the deluxe fretting miter box that I've come up with for cutting fret slots in both necks and fretboards. I need to get busy and get this thing released, or available for sale. But you can also use it for cutting nice 90-degree cuts, not just for frets. There's always more on the to-do list than there is time to do them, I found. I need 4 of these, but the 4th one has to be shorter because I've got that jack in the way down there. Of course, that's on the side I could possibly get away with just 2, but I'll make it work. Don't worry. All right, so for this final one, I think I'll go with about a 3/8 of an inch, no, 7/8 of an inch. All right. Yeah, so I'm just going to glue a stubby brace into this corner because the jack is in the way. See, I put the jack too close to that wall, forgetting that I had to come back and brace it. In just a few minutes. I think I could remember, but no sir. So a couple little dabby doos there, and in it goes. The great thing about hot glue, if you don't already know, is how fast you can go, because it grabs on and sets up. Like, you don't have to keep it clamped all that long. You get it in place, get a good, tight, strong bond, and then move on. It's not good for everything. I wouldn't glue a fretboard on with it, or I wouldn't do any like really heavy-duty structural gluing with it. Although actually on some of the first hobo fiddles I built using those Swisher Sweets boxes, I've got the first prototype in the other room there. I did hot glue that fretboard onto that neck. Hot glue sets up so fast, of course, that for that kind of work, we got to put a bunch on, get it on, clamp, clamp, clamp. It worked, but not well enough to really ever do again. But I was in a hurry with that first one. I wanted to see, will this idea work? Because the original series uses those old cardboard boxes. I got a stack of them right here behind the magic camera. So the original series of hobo fiddles used these cardboard boxes, and I happened to get a nice batch of these red swishers from Big Al Hamilton down at the York Festival. But these are cardboard boxes. You know, this is not wood. This is cardboard. I was like, will this idea work? Can I build a nylon stringed instrument out of one of these boxes? And it worked great. I actually got to build a few more of that, the original series. So I've gone over to building these Master Series using these mostly Corinna Lark's cigar boxes. These I've sanded the tops clean so that I can wood burn artwork onto them. Then I got a nice stack over here of ones that are not yet sanded. So they come with that on, I sand that back off and then wood burn the art in there. So yeah, alright, where are we at here? So I got my bracing glued in. Let me make sure the box still shuts. Because sometimes, you know, with the angles involved. Don't break it! That would be depressing if I broke the box at this point. It happens. Thankfully, not today. I actually want to take a little bit, it's a little snug when I go to close the box. I'm just going to just take a little bit of the curse off of it there. Yeah, that's a little better. All right. Okay, so I got my number nail glued in. How's my tailpiece doing? I haven't checked it for a while. Alright, it's looking good. So good. Now again, this stuff that I treated the tailpiece with, it is acid. I'm not sure exactly what percentage or what strength. So I should be, like, you know, rinsing it and doing all that kind of stuff, but don't tell nobody, but I'll give it a hillbilly rinse. Not necessarily OSHA recommended. Yeah. I was working around the house, getting some projects done earlier this weekend, and I had to come up with a few hillbilly remedies. I lost the, I've got an old shop vac at home, and the filter inside is held on with a wing nut over this threaded rod, and I lost the wing nut. So getting that filter to stay on there, and my wife needed to do some shop vacuuming in the basement. I was like, well, what am I going to do? So of course took a pair of vice grips, pushed that filter on there, and then could put those vice grips onto that threaded rod where it stuck out, and there you go, hillbilly wing nut. All right, well, here's my tailpiece now. It's got that nice antique bronze patina to it, sat there in that treatment. My fingers aren't burning too badly yet, so I think it came out all right. So now I gotta kind of get this, I gotta put the bend in it, you know. So get my box shut, and then find the center, because I don't want the tailpiece to be off. You know, it's got to be in line with the strings. So what I like to do is take my yardstick and just run it right down the neck, nice and even, and then make a couple of light pencil marks down here. And then you find the center, because those will be covered by the tailpiece. And then you find the center of that, which is what? I don't know. What's half of 1 1/4? 5/8 of an inch, I think so. 5/8. All right, so there's my center point. Now I can figure, and I know from doing previous ones kind of where I want this to end up, because the bridge is going to be here, so I don't have a lot of room. So I put it on. There you see. I put my tailpiece on the top where I want it to stick out, how far I want it to stick out. Then I can make a couple of little pencil marks on it on either side at the box edge, and that tells me where I need to bend this thing. Now, normally I've got a little sheet metal bending brake over there, but I don't want to run back over there. Brad says he uses the centering rule for stuff like that. That's a good idea. I've got one. Is that it? Yeah, there it is. Why don't I use that? I don't know. Centering rule. Yeah, that would have worked out great. 6 1/8, 6 1/8. Yep, I got it. The old-fashioned way. What was I doing? Oh, bending this. So usually I'd go over to the bending brake and have a go at it, but in this case I'm going to just do it at the vise. But before I do that, one other thing I like to do on these tail pieces is I've got these punches. I know you can't, yeah, that's a B, and I got an H and an O, and of course put all that together and you get hobo. So I like to punch hobo into the tailpiece. And that's easier to do before it's bent. So I need to get a little beefier hammer than my fretting hammer. Let's see. Hammer, hammer, hammer. Those are dead blow hammers there. That's not really what I want. Hammer, hammer, hammer. Be right back. Hammer, hammer, hammer. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning. All right, I got a hammer. Wicked hammer. Okay, so hobo. So I'm going to start with the H, and I'm using the little, I know it's kind of hard for you to see, but this vise has like a little anvil part on it. So I'm going to start with the H, right about here. Yes, sir. And then I'm going to do the final O right over here, which allows me to space the other two letters in between them so that it comes out somewhat even. So here's another O, and then the B. I'm going to get it the right way around on the first try. Yes, sir. And then it kind of bends the steel up a little bit, so use a wood block to flatten that back down. And of course the result is that. And I know it's backwards, sorry about that, but and actually what I can do is use just a little bit more of my treatment solution here. Get it down in there so it doesn't look new and shiny in there. Just let that sit for a minute and wipe it back off. So yeah, just all those little things I try to do just to add, because with an instrument like this, it's as much about the story, you know, as it is what it is, the story behind it. The fact that I was able to get some wood that was reclaimed from an old railroad steam engine water tower that I use for the necks on these, I think is pretty cool. Of course, on my original hobo fiddle, #1 that I play on, you know, on the Gitty Gang show and on stage, on those occasions I get on stage, that used old American chestnut for the neck from an old barn up in Maine, 200-year-old barn. So there. Now that's got the look. Darkened it down in there. It stands out real nice. That antique bronze finish. I like it. So now I'm going to bend it. And like I say, I'm not going to use my bending brake because I don't want to go back over there and leave the camera on dead air. But fortunately, you don't really have to have a bending brake if you got a vise. So I put a heavy 90-degree bend in there. I'll bring that back up a bit once I get her mounted. So yeah, just gonna go right about there. Now my braces in there go all the way down to the bottom. Is that true? Yes, that's true. So I always like to have at least one of the tailpiece holes hit the bracing. In this case, I think all three will. So I got to pre-drill some holes and pick out what screws to use. For this, I will often use brass-plated screws. Oh, and then I got some other stuff I can brush on these to tarnish and darken their heads so they look old too. So I'm going to get this tailpiece, well, I better slow down now, because once the tailpiece is on, I can't open the box anymore. So I still haven't tested the pickup, so let me do that. Got a little amp right over, can't see it, I'll be right back. You don't have to have strings on to test the piezo, because of course just tapping on it, you know it's working. And with a piezo, it's either working or it's not, you know, so. All right, so with that done, I can drill down in here and put my screws in to seal this box shut. I don't know if I've got, I think I gotta go get some screws out of the other room. Because I like using a flathead screw so that I can countersink it down in. Now doing that, I'm gonna be wiping out some of my stuff that I wood burned in here. But that's all right. Because if it was it is a real cigar box that I have kind of redecorated, but when you're building with cigar boxes, often you have to kind of drill down through or cover up some of the artwork that's on them. So it is what it is. So I've got these screws. They're a little hefty though, number 6 by 1.5. That's more than we really need for this. Let's see if I got some. Maybe these. Oh no, here we go. These stainless ones. Number 4 by 1 inch. This is the ticket right there. Just about right to go down through. Nice small head, so they're not going to wipe out too much of the thing there. And of course, I got to pick out what drill bit to use. I always like to hold the drill bit up right next to the screw and compare the diameter of the drill bit to the screw threads to make sure those threads will be able to get enough grip. So with just a quick reminder of where I'm at, right out about there. So about 3/8 of an inch out diagonally from each corner. And again, if you're watching this and you don't already know, having a big sale over at cbgitty.com right now through tonight, Labor Day sale. That drill bit's too big. 88 different items that I went through and hand-picked to put on sale, with the theme being jumpstart or kick off the building season. Here we go. Ronald Tao asks, why not just use the latch? Because with a wooden box like this that has the lid that pretty much touches flush all the way around, I've found that it can rattle. You can get buzzing if you don't get all of the corners down pretty good. Some people will glue this box shut. I did that on the first couple, but now I find a screw in each corner and leave the latch just kind of as decoration. I don't trust these little latches enough to... And I've never seen any need for a cigar box guitar to be easily opened either. I think it's better for the sound to have this box, this body, the sound body of the instrument. I think it's better to have that as much a single tight unit as possible for the tone. So other people may do it differently, and that's fine. You will pretty much never hear me say the words to anyone that you're doing it wrong. Those are not words that I tend to use. All right. So now I'm actually going to go against what I said earlier, and I am going to use a countersinking bit that I chuck into my drill here, but I'm going to do so very carefully, because one of the things that this does better than the hand one is you can end up with a cleaner countersinking divot. And since this is the front of my instrument, that's what I want. But I'm going to be very judicious in my application of it. Because the closer you get to the end of an instrument or to finishing an instrument, of course, Murphy's Law says the greater the chance there is that you're going to screw something up. So I try to get more and more cautious as I proceed. Now, probably don't need to quite, well, one of those areas of caution is using a power screwdriver. Anytime you're putting a screw into a part of the box that could split, and this thin, tight grain top is certainly one that could split. So I'm going to use this to get the screw down almost tight and then finish it off by hand so I don't drive it in too far and crack that grain, because I've done it before. And then you gotta take the screw out, glue, clamp, wait for the glue to dry, put the screw back in, and I don't want to do all that. So I'm just getting it down to almost tight, and then all right. And then gently snug it in so they're flush and snug. Now these are stainless steel screws. There. And of course, they look like stainless steel screws. Rick asks if I wax my threads. I do not. In some cases I should. Keeping a candle stub on your workbench for waxing those screw threads is a good idea. So I happen to have another little handy dandy bottle here, which is a bronze treatment forged stainless steel. See Rich Lewin out there? Howdy Rich and Rick Flink. So for this I'm going to use one of these long stick, basically a Q-tip or a swab that I found on some medical supply. It might have been off Amazon, but they're handy for one-off things like this. They're very handy for cleaning glue out of cracks. Now ideally I would have treated these screws before I put them in, but these are cigar box guitars. How often are things ideal, you know? Really, come on now. I haven't used this particular treatment very much on the stainless steel, and it doesn't seem to really be doing all that much. Maybe this one needs to sit a little longer. They all have different rules and such. I see Mark Madding out there. How you doing, buddy? So I'm just going to put a good dollop on each of these and let it sit. It does look like it's starting to darken them down a little bit. Yeah, definitely is. And doesn't seem to be harming the wood. There's no smoking or fizzing going on, which we'll take as a good thing. Smoking and fizzing. Alright, so we're getting down pretty much to tuner installation. The good thing about these swabs is when you're done with them, you can just chuck them. I'm going to keep this one for just another minute in case I need to put some more on of this chemical on these screws. But at this point, with the box screwed shut, I feel good about putting this tailpiece on. So I'm going to chuck in a, let's see, I got my brass number 4 by 1/2 inch brass plated screws here. And for that I need a drill bit of appropriate size. This one seems a little hefty. I think I got to run over and get another drill bit. Yeah, I'll be right back. My 1/16 inch drill bit broke earlier. Apparently I need to get more 1/16 inch drill bits. We are pretty much out of them, I guess. So I'm going to try a 3/32. 1/16 is 2/32. This is 3/32. Yeah, I know, drone cam. I'm here by myself today, Roger. All the rest of the Gitty crew are off enjoying Memorial Day, so I don't have anybody to drone along with me. I have to drone all by myself. So there's those treated screws. I might give them another dose. It took some of that silveriness off, but I think they could get a bit darker. After I get this sound hole on, I'll give them another treatment. I'll get them on here and evened up. And then start my holes. So the fact that the tailpiece drills through and screws to the neck brace that the neck's screwed to as well, I try to involve the box itself as little as possible in supporting the strings. The box is just kind of suspended there under the bridge. All its job is to make the sound, not structural, not so much structural. So, because this drill bit is just a little bigger than I like for number 4 screws, I didn't go down as far as I usually would, so that hopefully there'll be some undrilled wood there at the bottom of the pilot hole for the screw threads to really get into. All right. Okay, so there she is. Now I'm going to bend my tailpiece back up a little bit, like so I can get strings tied onto it. And I'm going to dose these screw heads down here with my other magic glue here, the copper blackening solution. First I'm going to scuff them up a little bit. Actually, that scuffing looks good on the whole tailpiece, so I'll do that all over. But before you put any of this kind of stuff on, you want to make sure there's no grease or oil or anything on what you're treating. Use another swab and just kind of get a nice big drop to go down into each of these screw heads. Just to tarnish them down a little bit. Chris, no, or Ken, sorry, I don't sell these metal treatments. I got them from a company called Surefine Chemical out in, I think they're out of California. Now, what's interesting is that this chemical, the copper blackening chemical, is darkening the treatment on my steel. Because I think what that actually did, that last treatment for the tailpiece, deposited a layer of copper, or bronze even, onto my steel. So now this copper darkening solution is darkening that. So I should have treated these screws before putting them in, but that's all good. I can blend it in. I'm still getting the hang of all of this chemical treatment stuff. Here. Actually, that kind of blotchy look that it gives is kind of cool. So maybe we'll try a double treatment here. Because on a hobo fiddle, I want everything to look like it might have been found along the tracks, you know. Even when it isn't. It's some, a newer thing like this. We cut these little tail pieces here, got a whole stack of them. We cut these over on the plasma out of sheet steel, and then smooth them up. Hopefully we'll be I'm slowly bringing all of the components of a hobo fiddle to market as separate products, so I'm hoping soon we'll have these tail pieces on and then the necks as well, because I want to build up to a hobo fiddle kit. There. Yeah, looks pretty good, I think. Looks like a rusty or a tarnished old bronze thing. Looks better than bare stainless steel, I think. Alright, put that back. Throw this away. That out of the work area. Alright, Alright, so I got my tailpiece on. Everything else pretty much done. It is time to put in the tunas. Now I've started using these covered gear tuners on these hobo fiddles. Just a little fancier than the open gear. And I'm still experimenting with ways to antique these, because this is, I believe, nickel chrome plating on these, and I haven't yet quite found anything that'll darken it down in a reliable way. It feels kind of weird having shiny chrome on a on a hobo fiddle, but you know, gotta make some compromises, I guess. So I'm just going to get these mounted on here. I suppose I should do some searching. Maybe this same company, this Surefin company, has a stuff that would work on nickel chrome. Rusty's saying ferric oxide. Actually, it's possible one of these things I already have would work on it. Now you may have noticed I did not drill pilot holes for this tuner. That's because this is a softwood neck. This is old pine from that railroad water tower I was talking about. These are very small screws. Now technically I should still drill a pilot hole, because there is the risk that this wood could crack. But for some foolish reason, I'm choosing to gamble here at the very end, one of the last steps. But I've done this before and it's always worked out, so I'm not too worried. Because after this, it's time for stringing her up, buddy. Yeah, boy. One of the dangers of drilling tuner pilot holes, especially if you've got a pretty thin headstock like this one, is drilling through, all the way through the front of the headstock. And then you got a nice little hole there that you got to try to cover up or fill or otherwise deal with. All right, they're returning. Okay, so then I've got this bridge, and I might have to lower this bridge a little bit because it's gonna, yeah, I definitely have to, because it's pretty high compared to the fretboard. But it's time to string. I just happen to have a whole, oh boy. Tell you what, I'm getting old. I was doing yard work yesterday and the day before. Man, feeling it. It's hell getting old. Alright, so for these I use the number 4, 3, and 2 strings out of a standard classical guitar pack. What would be the D, G, and B strings out of a classical guitar pack. Just kind of loop them through and tie them onto the tailpiece. I try to use the ukulele. I think it's the ukulele. Actually, the knot I use for this is the same knot I used to use when I was fishing for tying on fish hooks. Bring it through 3 times around through the original and then back through and tight. And it hasn't let go yet. I always try to pre-stretch these nylon strings a little bit, just to help them break in a little faster. So, my handy dandy string winder. If you do a lot of re-stringing, you should have one of these. That's my opinion. Okay, then the number 3 string. Please get these empty ones out of the way here. it's the third string on an acoustic classical style guitar, becomes my middle D on this one. I should have left myself a little more slack here. These strings are plenty long for a 17-inch scale, so it's not like I have to be miserly and worry about wasting any, because that's a great idea, Ken. You see what Ken just said? He cuts a piece of ink pen tube, puts it over his drill bit, and it allows him to drill down to a specific depth and stop. That's a great idea for smaller, smaller diameter bits, like 1/16 inch. See, that's the kind of thing what I was saying earlier. People have been woodworking for a long time and have figured out a lot of clever stuff that would be a big help. Where to put this? There it is. Now I'm just getting these up to fighting tension. I don't even have a bridge on there yet, because I'm going to have to do some, I'm going to have to go over to the big sander and adjust this bridge a little bit, because she's too high for how this fretboard is situated. So 3 times around, back through the original loop. I think I went 4 times around that time. Back through the original, and then through the secondary again. So again, thank you all for taking time out of your Memorial Day, or not Memorial Day, Labor Day, to join me here. Watch me finish off a Master Series Hobo Fiddle here on the bench. Nice and quiet here in the Gitty shop today, because everybody else is off enjoying the fine holiday weather. But sometimes I like to come in when nobody else is here, so that I can get some things done without people coming at me with questions and concerns and problems and this and that. All right. Well, maybe this bridge will be okay. Action isn't too bad. Let me get her up to concert pitch here and see what happens. Why not? String my hair. As you can see, these string winders can save you a whole bunch of twisting. Now with these nylon strings, I like going half a step over the intended tuning. So instead of G, D, G, I like to do G sharp, G sharp, E flat, G sharp. Because they're going to stretch out so much. Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's right. They're going to stretch out so much to break in that they'll give that half a step back and more. Now you see this D, I had that up to E flat, and it's already back down 20 cents shy of D, so. So that's a half a step sharp. That's a hobo fiddle. She got pretty good sound, I think. Looking around for a pick. Usually got one in my pocket. Those. Got a whole bag of stainless steel picks. I don't like them. So anyway, Freebird. Come on, Roger. Honestly, I've never sung Freebird. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? I must be traveling home now. There's too many places I've gotta be. I can't remember how the heck it goes. Yeah, free as a bird, etc., etc. It's been a while since I've even listened to Freebird, believe it or not. So, I'm trimming off the excess strings here. Get that sorted out and trim the excess off down here at the tailpiece. Alright. So now I'm going to bring her back down to regular old G, D, G. Watching somebody tune a guitar, it's exciting stuff, right? Do I worry about intonation? Well, fortunately, I've done enough of these that I don't usually have to worry about it all that much. So, G open, G at the 12th. I know you can't see my tuner, but they're spot on. The D is pretty darn close. G is doing all right. So, you know, getting the bridge the right distance from your nut or your 0 fret is important. Having your action height not be too high is important. Of course, having your frets in the right place and leveled is important. Fortunately, nylon is pretty darn forgiving. I know I got a bunch of picks somewhere around this place. Man, I always lose my stuff. You know, you ever lose your stuff? Ah, here's one. Alright. So, in keeping with the hobo motif, even though these strings are still breaking in, she's going to be out of tune by the time I finish. We got the old track gang crew on there, out there helping build and maintain the railroads. Drive us slow, just grab that whistle and let her blow. I don't want no fortune, don't care about fame. On the 123 or the 509, I'm rolling across the country and feeling fine. I'm going back to where the people know my name. Well, grab that throttle, shovel in the coal, oh yeah. Don't you touch that brake, let her go, I say let her roll. Well, this might be my final ride, but everyone I love's on the other side. I'm going back to where the people know my name. Say I'm going back to where the people know my name. One more time, I'm going back to where the people know my name. Alright, well there is Hobo Fiddle number 7. If It's all over but the signing of the back at this point. I just realized I forgot to put that extra coat of tongue oil on there like I said I was gonna. But don't worry, I can loosen these strings up, take these screws back off, tailpiece comes up, gets the strings out of the way, then I can treat the box, give it its final treatment, and call it good. So, thank you all for taking time out of your day to watch me screw around here at the workbench. See a new hobo fiddle come into being. Call them my hobo babies. This will be number 7 officially, because the one I built and kept for myself is number 1, but this will be the 6th one that I will let go out into the world to hopefully an appreciative buyer. Haven't had one returned yet. Alright, so tailpiece off, and bring it up, wrap it around to keep the strings safe and out of the way as I go over and apply tongue oil to the box. See, I gouged it with a drill bit, so I gotta kind of touch that up, and just the back of the box got kind of splotchy when I originally put the tongue on it. Anyway, a little bit of cleanup, let that dry. Tomorrow I'll come out, sign it, take some photos, and get her listed. So thank you. Edward's asking if I do these regular. Not as regular as I'd like. I tell you, I would like to have more time to get out here to the bench. And honestly, I got this one up here is next. This one's using a design that Farley kind of came up with. The old Gitty's handmade. I'm trying to kind of try to make it look like an old cigar box and come up with a design and that old Gitty brand, you know, it's up and coming. So that's going to be the next hobo fiddle. Hopefully I'll be able to get that built soon, because like I say, right now I don't have any Master Series Hobo Fiddles listed, and I got this whole box, this whole stack of Swisher boxes over here to build some of the original series Hobo Fiddles out of. So anyway, hope you have a great rest of the day. If you're off today, you know, I hope the rest of this long weekend is good for you. I'm going to get home and get back to working on tablature. I've been fired back up to get more tab songbooks created, working on volume 2 of the Cigar Box Guitar Hymnal, the second half of all the old beloved hymns and whatnot. So anyway, be well, do good work, keep on building, build what you play what you love. If you're having fun, you're doing it right, and all those other great sayings. So, Giddy out, hit the button.